Thanks so much, George. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Okay, so my first question is a raise your hand if. And I'm going to kind of stand this way so I'm not in anybody's way because I got scolded a little bit about, for being in the way. So I'm not going to do that again. So raise your hand if you are an educator. All right. Raise your hand if you are a parent. Raise your hand if there are young people in your life that you love teaching things to. Raise your hand if you personally love to learn. Oh, you are in the right place. We're going to have fun. All right. My next question is, when you think about how much you've all just admitted you love learning, by the way, which is why this next question follows perfectly. I want to know what inspires your learning or what motivates you to learn.
Curiosity, just staying curious.
Just curiosity. Good answer. What else makes you want to learn?
My own mistakes.
My own mistakes. That was brilliant. Other things that make you want to learn. Oh, come on. I won't make you talk into the mic if you don't want to. Okay. All right. Here we go.
I like being surprised by things.
Love that. Like being surprised. What else makes you learn?
It's fun. When learning's fun.
Just when it's fun. Yes. I'm getting my steps today.
Just knowing that there's endless knowledge, everything you want to learn, so many things to learn around the world.
It's right. The vastness of it. I love it. All right. So this is what I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to say, when you're interested in a subject, you want to learn more about it. I also thought you were going to say, when something captures your attention, you want to learn more about it. And that you were going to say the enthusiasm of other people. I mean, George, for example, works in the U.S. Copyright Office. Doesn't his enthusiasm make you want to know more about copyright? That's right. At 4:15 today, right here, you can learn more about copyright. All right. Expertise of others. When you're around somebody who just knows their stuff, it's so fun to learn from them. The desire to become an expert. The relevance to your life. This is why my husband watches YouTube videos. Every time he wants to save money and work on the car himself, YouTube is his channel of choice. Curiosity, that's where we started, love it. And the element of surprise, love it. I love that I was doing some mind reading on this one. This is good. And finally, the desire for success. You want to be good at stuff, so that's why you want to keep learning, right? So you too can be one of those experts. And of course, there are lots of other reasons that motivate us to learn. And when we're thinking about young people in our lives, figuring out what it is that really motivates them, sometimes it is that element of surprise. Sometimes it is they want to become that expert. Sometimes it is they're just curious. And figuring out what that motivation is something we care very deeply about at the Library of Congress. And so for about the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to tell you about some of the ways we do that, and then we're going to open it up for questions, and hopefully this will become a really valuable session where you can leave with some ideas and some resources. So again, thank you for being here. Okay, if I had asked you what cultural institution or government agency or largest library in the world inspires learning, you would have said, oh yeah, that's exactly what you would have said. Yes, you would have said the Library of Congress, we hope. I might put that slide back up at the end of this and see if it's true. At the library, some of the ways we inspire learning are through events, through publications, and through networks that we help manage and facilitate. And that's really what I'm going to talk about today. The first thing, I need to ask an important question. Again, we're the Library of Congress, and there are lots of organizations that host events, publish materials, and facilitate networks. So what is it about these things at the library that make them unique to the Library of Congress? What do you suppose the answer there is? Yeah. Maybe so, because we feel strongly about things like citations and where information comes from. Wow, that's a nutty answer, but yes, as a matter of fact, it's the collections, of course. That was really good. And I didn't even plant her there. I'm just going to have you know she knew where I was headed. Yeah, so the collections in the library's holdings really do inspire learning because there are so many things about them that we are curious about and so many things that really do just drive our motivation to learn more. The materials in the library's collections that you can learn about, by the way, all around us. I know that you know that a lot of the various divisions around the library are here at the book festival sharing examples of what's in their holdings and ways you can access them. So I encourage them poking around and seeing what our colleagues are sharing. I think would be definitely worth your while. A couple of specific stories that I want to tell you, though, because so many of you are educators. We encourage incorporating primary source materials into classroom instruction. And we do that across the grade spectrum and across the curriculum. We often, when somebody says, hey, I came across this thing, would this be appropriate in a third grade class? And our answer is usually, well, funny thing about these primary sources, they weren't created with a particular grade level in mind, nor were they created with a particular subject in mind necessarily. And so the creativity of the educator, and again, back to the motivation involving that student, has a lot to do with what we suggest. So the stories I'm going to tell you are from educators who have participated in workshops or summer teacher institutes that we've hosted at the library, or that organizations who are part of our Teaching with Primary Sources consortium have hosted. So this first one, this is from an elementary school librarian in Rye, New York. And does anybody know what those two images are? Have you ever seen things like that before? Those are Sanborn maps. And if you visit our colleagues over in the geography and map table right over there, you can ask them more about the Sanborn maps. But they were fire insurance maps. And they cover literally thousands of communities across the country. And this teacher from Rye, New York learned that we had Sanborn maps of Rye, New York. And she was like, oh, I'm going to use these. I'm going to use these with my kids for an activity related to the social studies curriculum involving her second graders. Because in second grade, their social studies curriculum focused on your neighbors and your neighborhood and what being a good neighbor is all about. So she used the Sanborn maps to create an activity in her school library for all of the second graders. And this is what she shared about it. She said, it was really great seeing how into it they, the 7 and 8-year-olds, were. They started buzzing that it was a map of Rye. And when I asked when the map was made, it really got them thinking. They realized that it was not recent. Some students found the date and yelled it out. And after they knew it was so old, like 100 years old, they really got into looking at the streets and excitedly pointed out when they knew a street or a particular place. And that sort of speaks to that relevancy thing. And again, maps like the Sanborn maps are so good at introducing ways of creating relevance. I love that. I love that she's working. Primary source analysis for 7 and 8-year-olds, she rocks. Another example. This one is from a middle school Spanish teacher in Michigan. Okay. Again, the library's collections, as you may have already heard from someone else today, are not just in English. In fact, there are materials in the library's collection in more than 470 different languages. This particular Spanish teacher in Michigan apparently encounters kids who ask the question, when am I going to use this? And why do I need to know this? And she likes to emphasize, well, you can find language all over the world. And so she found a collection of photographs that were taken, in this case, in San Antonio, Texas. And she loved them because the images had so many of her vocabulary words in them. And again, she was trying to get it relevant. She was trying to get at how can I get my kids to notice first that they are learning things, and two, ask questions about where this sort of information might be from. She was wanting them to, say that, oh, here's a lot of Spanish in this photograph, and no, it isn't from Spain or Mexico. In this case, she says, my students were incredibly engaged in this activity. There were many great discussions about what clues they could see in the photos that backed up what they thought, again, about where the photo was taken. After we discussed all of the photos and they had looked at all of them so deeply through primary source analysis, our conversations regarding the use of Spanish were much more informed. Love that. By the way, all of those notations and circles and things, that was apparently what a student had done using an iPad, because she had them doing the activity in that way so that she could kind of capture what their observations were. This one, child labor. Again, this is an 8th grade teacher. This is an 8th grade teacher in Northville, New York. She does a lesson every year related to the progressive era, and she introduced her students to photographs that Lewis Hine took in various cities across the country of children in various working conditions. And this was what she shared with us, that when we get to our lessons about child labor, there is always a chorus of students who say they would rather be working than in school anyway. This lesson definitely took away the glamour of making money as a kid instead of just sitting in school. Again, the photographs and the letters were pretty insightful and not what the kids necessarily expected. This photograph is one that, again, in our prints and photographs division, is from it's part of a collection that is the Farm Security Administration that turned into the to the Office of War Information during the Second World War. And the photographs, in this case, this is a photograph taken right after President Roosevelt's executive order that led to the incarceration of Japanese Americans in internment camps in the West. This particular teacher, who is a teacher of at-risk students in an alternative education environment, who described the change that he witnessed in student engagement when he taught a unit about the Japanese and Japanese American internment during the Second World War. He was using primary sources from the library's collections, again, a series of photographs from a primary source set that we have on this topic. And this is what he said. He said that this has been transformational. Students that previously acted out so that they could leave the classroom are now coming in and actively participating. I wish I could bottle this. We love that. We love hearing things like this is changing something in the way my students are learning and the way they're motivated to learn. So I'm going to tell you about some of these events that these teachers were involved with. First of all, on the library's website, which is just loc.gov, you can go to the events section, find our calendar of events, and look at all the different events that are available, not just for teachers and students, but for anybody. So you can find out about concerts and performances and courses and workshops and so on and so on and so on. And you can find out specifically about professional development opportunities through our teachers page. So if you go to loc.gov/teachers, you will find out that you will find a tab that says professional development. And if you click on the professional development tab, you're going to get the page that looks like this, that's going to tell you about on-site workshops, as well as self-paced modules that are available that you can print out a certificate from if your district needs you to do that. And if you want to request something for you, your colleagues, your school, you can send a little note to us and we can see what we can work out. Whether it's in person, whether it's a webinar, whether it's a combination, that little form that's available is the way to get that started. Again, another quote from a teacher who was with us this summer. Didn't you love it when like the evaluation says like what you wish everybody would say? The 3-day workshop felt optimally designed for maximum impact, structured and dynamic learning, independent discovery and reflection, and positive experiences. Every activity was a meta lesson that I can't wait to apply in various lessons throughout my next school year, and I feel invigorated as a teacher. Yay! Love that. That's what we kind of hope the book festival does too, by the way. A little invigoration is a good thing. Some of the publications I want to highlight. Again, we've got online publications, and if you explore the library's website, you'll find our teachers page. That's where you're going to find primary source sets. You'll find our primary source analysis worksheets and other published tools. You will also find online blogs. If you are, and do any of you already subscribe to a Library of Congress blog? There are like 24 of them. Seriously. If you love maps, Geography and Map has one. If you love copyright, it's got one. If you love photographs, Prints and Photographs has one. My office, we have one specifically for educators that is called Teaching with the Library of Congress. And our colleagues in our informal learning office have a blog that's called Minerva's Kaleidoscope. And their posts are specifically for young people and for families. In every one of those blog posts, we are sharing either a resource, a strategy, a new collection, an upcoming conference, a workshop availability, a whole variety of ways to, and you can do an RSS feed, so it just comes into your email. And if you have time, you can read it, or you can kind of like save it for later. Make it the fun read, you know. Oh, this is great. I shared my slides with two of my colleagues who happen to be here. So Laura and Michael are our new Einstein Fellows. And I'll tell you a little bit about that program in a second. But I ran through my slides with them a few days ago, and I was like, what do you think? And they're like, oh, it's great. What's missing? And then they both, because they're science teachers, said, you really got to talk to the science or math thing. I'm like, of course I do. So perfect entry point. A few years ago, we had an educator who was a second grade teacher. She was one of our Einstein Fellows. It's a program through the Department of Energy where they place outstanding STEM teachers in a different agency for the course of a year. We had one of these educators working with us. She, again, second grade teacher, and the year that she was with us, the papers of Rosa Parks came to the library and were being digitized. And this is an item from the Rosa Parks papers, and it is her recipe for featherlight pancakes. They have peanut butter in them and are amazing. Highly recommend them. But Amara loved this so much because he's like, this is how I'm going to get my second graders into fractions. And so she wrote a blog post about it. And the blog post was called Math, Measurement, Civil Rights, and Pancakes. A recipe from Rosa Parks. Oh, it was good. So the blog post, again, Amara wrote it, but this is part of what she wrote. She said, the recipe can also introduce concepts from across the curriculum. It could be used to introduce measurement to students. Draw students' attention to the abbreviations of the measurements and dive deeper into a measurement lesson. Bring in measuring tools, and if time allows, the ingredients listed to create Mrs. Parks pancakes. Another idea, students can practice multiplying whole numbers and fractions to double or triple the pancake. And that is a brilliant idea, by the way, because like I said, it's a good one. So again, our blog is a great place for this sort of suggestion of a teaching strategy involving a primary source from the library's collections. We also write articles that are in professional journals, and for those of you who've ever picked up a copy of Social Education from the National Council for the Social Studies, or The Science Teacher from the National Science Teaching Association, or the Music Educators Journal from NAFME, the National Association for Music Education, you may have bumped into some of our work because we write a regular feature in every one of those magazines. Again, highlighting collection items and ways they can be used in the classroom. And just this year, we launched a publication partnership with the American Library Association. We have a new series that we're publishing with them called Discover and Learn with the Library. The first 2 volumes were published this year. One focuses on the civil rights movement. One focuses on invention and innovation. And we have additional titles that will be coming out soon. We are finishing up the final pieces to one related to the American Revolution and the new nation that will come out early in the next year. Last thing I wanted to highlight are just the networks, the organizations and individuals that we keep connected to the library in some pretty deliberate ways. One of those ways we keep in touch with our networks is through the TPS Teachers Network. If you are an educator and you already incorporate primary sources into your classroom or you want to do it more, really encourage you to check out the Teachers Network. There are about 15,000 educators that have registered for our network. I'd say about 1,000 to 1,500 of them are on the site literally every month, sharing ideas with each other, getting ideas from one another, and really asking great questions of, hey, I'm teaching this lesson on this in 2 weeks. Does anybody have an idea? And that's, so the exchanges that are happening, definitely worth checking out. Our affiliated centers for the book are another one of our networks. And for those of you who've been walking around the exhibit hall and you've been at the back end where the roadmap to reading is, you have seen more than 50 of our affiliated centers for the book, again, from all across the country. They do incredible programming in the literary space. If you want to find out more about what they're doing and in your location, definitely visit them, again, at the very back of the hall. This is like, I can give you a sneak peek. So Monday, and I know you all have this marked on your calendar, is International Literacy Day. And on International Literacy Day, the Library of Congress announces that year's Literacy Award winners. These are organizations that do work in the US and around the world to help people learn to read and write and make sense of information. And on Monday, we are announcing this year's winners. So it's going to come out as a press release. We hope it does, in fact, get some press. It's a really good news story about organizations that are doing really exceptional work. And if you check out our website on that day, we've got a new story map. We've got a whole resource that links you to not only the new winners, but all of the organizations that have been recognized through this program for the last 13 years. There are incredible organizations doing great work. And checking them out is definitely worth your time. I mentioned our 2 Einstein Fellows. We, for the last more than 15 years, every year have hosted at least one educator in our office to contribute to the work that we're doing and help us understand what reality is in the classroom at this moment. And we love that program. If you're interested in serving as a educator in residence at the library, check out that link. You might also check out our internships and fellowships link, because there are a lot of opportunities in that vein at the library. And I bet somebody is going to talk about that later today here too. And I'm done, and I think I have like 3 minutes left, but if you have questions, oh, I have 5 minutes left. All right, we got 5 minutes for questions. I've stunned them into silence.
Can you speak briefly into some of the, I know that you've already collected some topics together and created things that teachers can work with. Can you speak a little bit into some of those resources?
Yep. So 2 things I want to mention. When you go on the library's website, if you go to loc.gov/teachers, that's the teachers page that my team and I are responsible for. And on that page, one of the tabs it links you right to primary source sets, timelines, and other lesson materials. The primary source sets, I'm a big fan of. This is where we have been told by so many educators that what they really want are collection items and great ideas. And that's what those primary source sets are. And the reason I think they're so important, right now the library's website contains something like 38 million digitized items. And we said that at a social studies conference a couple of years ago, and whatever the number was then. And one of the teachers we met, she said, "Oh, it's worse than I thought." And we thought that was such a great. And what that meant was, I don't have time, but I know there's good stuff in there, and I struggle to find it. And that's where those primary source sets come in handy, because we have created primary source sets that we've got sets related to every state and territory. We have sets related to Abraham Lincoln. We've got sets related to immigration and migration. We've got sets related to World War II. We've got sets related to the Great Depression. We've got sets related to natural disasters. We've got sets related to, we've got sort of every time we get, and every page on the library's website has a link to the Ask a Librarian service. And we really do. Every Ask a Librarian question or comment that comes through the teachers page comes to our office. And it's often through that that were like, oh, teachers are asking for something on this upcoming topic or something they're going to be teaching in 3 weeks or something. And we can either respond immediately with here's a source that might be of interest or a collection of resources, or it's one of those, hey, why haven't we done something on that topic? In fact, our Einstein Fellow last year, elementary school science teacher with kids who love bones and archaeology stuff. So our next primary source set is actually on paleontology. And we're feeling like rock stars about this one because we're the Library of Congress. And we don't have a lot of bones and stuff. However, we had an Einstein Fellow who was incredibly creative and identified resources in the collections that she is absolutely going to use with her elementary school students in their unit on paleontology. And we get to share it with everybody. So be on the lookout for the paleontology set. All right. All right.
Hi, thank you.
We'll talk about that next.
So I'm an ESOL teacher and I work with multilingual learners, many of which now are speaking Dari and Farsi, and
yes.
there's not
Yes.
a lot.
Oh, but there is.
Okay. Yeah,
Do
tell
we
me
have,
about it.
is African Middle East Division here? Okay, so we have colleagues who have been doing such an amazing job. So, okay, if you go on the library's website, loc.gov/digital collections, okay, and then search within the digital collections on exactly what you just said, and if you don't find something, send me an email. Seriously, my email address is I don't know if I put it on there. I thought I put it on. Okay, it's lpot@loc.gov. And we will find it because I love that you're asking about that because you're absolutely, and by the way, I need to say this too. So the papers of people like Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson and others are not all just in English because you know what? They knew languages other than English. Just saying. So if you're looking for materials that you could use with students and you're trying to think about how can I acknowledge that I've got a kid who's got a skill that nobody else in this room has, and how can I elevate that skill in a way that's authentic to what I'm teaching? Ooh, those are fabulous collections for that sort of thing. Cool? All right. Thank you all very much. Enjoy the book festival.